All right, so it might be a little quiet since we are sharing a microphone, but good week.
Yeah, I had a great week. Thanksgiving, had 2 Thanksgivings. That's always a good week.
Yeah, what'd you have at the second one? Was that the first one?
Second one was ham and potatoes and yams and salad and all kinds of other little stuff. Apple pie.
Would you consider that a traditional Thanksgiving?
Well, there was no turkey, so probably not. Which I'm okay with. I love turkey, but
I wonder what most people's Thanksgiving looks like. What do you think? I feel like it's turkey, ham, yams, mashed potatoes,
cranberry sauce, green bean casserole. I know is a big thing for a lot of people.
I guess like stuffing you only have once a year.
Stuffing. I think that's the main ones. Dinner rolls.
Yeah. One day a year, it's okay to eat dinner rolls.
Yeah. And then the next day too, because you make sandwiches out of them.
Oh man, I've been eating them sandwiches. I even had Mom made bacon yesterday. Ooh. So I had a bacon roll for breakfast.
Nothing wrong with that.
Can't beat it.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. All right, so we kind of already had this conversation on Thanksgiving, but I wanted to tell you where it came from.
Okay.
So my mindset this week has been being comfortable with yourself. So I don't know if it was Monday or probably Tuesday, I think it was. Tuesday's my run day. But I run on the treadmill and I'm listening to this motivational speech on Morgan's little TV.
Yeah.
And there's a quote in there and it just like was clips of people speaking. And it just was talking about we have to be comfortable with listening to that person upstairs, to that voice in your head, to just being alone with yourself. And I was like, wow, I go through life with so much noise. Like, I turn the TV off and I'm just like sitting there in silence. I wake up, you turn the TV on, right?
Yeah.
You're just drowning out your thoughts because for me, I was like, I'm scared of that guy upstairs.
Yeah.
Like, that's right where my mind went. It's like, I'm scared of him. I have to drown him out. You know, I get into the car, I turn the music up, right? Drowning out the thoughts. I go to work out, blare the music on full blast. Just creating excess noise so I don't have to listen to that guy up there. And it went right with the confidence psychology book that I'm reading at the moment, or I'm listening to. And I was just like, that's got to be a big first step is understanding that it's okay to listen to that voice, and once you have that clarity, you can kind of see what your life looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can go through life and I'm like, oh, I am very conscious of what I'm doing. I'm not just flowing through life, letting it wash me around.
Yeah.
So that is where it came from. You have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a great point. We talked a little bit about Thanksgiving too, about ADD and like how we like work and stuff like that. And it's like, if I'm physically doing something and I throw a podcast on in my AirPods, it's like I can retain the entire thing. But that's also, I will do days of, like, if I'm going to do a week-long, like, project or something like that, I'll make sure a couple of my days, at least one, I don't have a podcast going on or something. Like, I'm just, like, listening to myself.
Super aware of what you're doing and kind of...
And it gives you, like you said, it gives you perspective. It's like time to digest. Like, you actually start chewing through all the things that we use distractions to avoid. Yeah. And I think that's the noise you called it. It's all just distractions, really. It's like keeping our attention somewhere else, right, outside of ourselves.
Yeah, so you don't have to listen to that guy.
It's no inward reflection, yeah. And that guy, that voice, I kind of just associate with internal reflection, or like that's kind of what it is to me. It's like sitting in your existence. You're just sitting in your feelings, your emotions, your whatever's going through your brain at the time. You're just dealing with it. Yeah. Instead of, and it's no different than, addiction or something. Like, you can just use something that you're chasing to keep you from ever having to deal with, what's right in front of you or what's inside of you.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, talking with Morgan, I was like, do you spend any time alone, like, with you and no noise? Which is tough for her, because she got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Constantly flying around.
They're not big meditators at that age, you know?
But she's like, well, when I go for a run, I just have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense to me, because I can't turn it off, ever. Like, it's not. Like,
yeah, mine's never dead quiet either.
It can't. I mean, is that good, bad? I don't know. I would like to turn it off sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think about like those the monks and stuff like that, and how at peace they are with themselves. Like that guy upstairs that's talking, either positively or negatively, but they are 100% in control or at peace.
Yeah.
With that mind, because they can sit there and talk to them, or listen to him, or moving into his watch, whatever's going through their minds. So my question is, how does your mind work? Which we already kind of talked about this a little bit.
I'm definitely, like, you were talking about, like, a auditory or visual kind of processor. I think I'm definitely visual, but we use the examples of, like, and it's I was thinking about this too after we talked. It's like if I know entirely how something works, like if I'm gonna build a wall, for example, I can visualize the wall in my head and all of its different layers. And it's like I can visually peel the sheetrock off, and I can see the insulation in it, and I can see the plumbing and the wires inside of it.
Interesting.
That run, you know what I mean? So if I know a subject matter well, I can visualize it very easily. So I don't know if, like, we use the basketball analogy for you. It's like the repetition of things, like you do it over and over again, allows you to visualize it easier the next time.
Yeah, I can't visualize something that has not happened.
Mm-hmm.
I can only visualize past experiences, so I'm like not super creative like that. Like if I was picturing what's behind this wall, it's probably not even nearly closely accurate because I don't really know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's hard for me to even try to do it. What's behind this wall in front of me? Like, I can't really even get it initiated.
Yeah, see, I'm like, super visual.
If I'm recalling a memory, then I'm gonna go for visual. Or if I'm like, I look at a math problem like 2x plus 3y equals 10. Like, I move my x over, I subtract the x, and then divide it by 3, like, without really doing it.
Right.
That's how I'm able to just write out y equals the answer. You know, it's because I can move those in my mind, but I'm looking at it right in front of me.
Right.
You know, then I can manipulate it, but like looking behind this wall, I can't move that wall. I tried. You know, it's so funny. I tried the other day. It was like, I'm gonna imagine that this house is next to the garage instead of in front of it.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of see the garage, and I could see the house, and I could not do it. I was just like sat there and tried for like 5 minutes. I'm like,
yeah. See, and that's hard for me to understand because like my mind has always processed things like I don't know. It's like a little AutoCAD or graphic design program in your brain that you can like I can imagine if I'm working on something, whether it's like coarse thread screws or machine thread bolt, like I can visualize it being threaded into wherever it's going into. Like it's very detailed, and that's how I kind of manipulate the world around me.
And see, that's why I think I have the monologue, because I can't.
Yeah.
Or haven't been able to. Because there's like books of like the power of visualization.
Yeah.
And like after doing some research into this, I'm like, there's these books that are telling you that visualizing is a very comprehensive tool, but nobody has a book about, I didn't see anything about like using the monologue in your head.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They just left you high and dry.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck? I'm naturally on the side. But like, it's also, in the content of the book, it's like, how do you talk to yourself? Like, affirmations, like, you can use those to build confidence.
Those are powerful.
Right, those are pretty powerful too, but
the power of the tongue has life and death in it.
Yeah.
That's straight from the Word of God.
Yeah.
So you know it's true.
Yeah, that one's true. For sure.
You can destroy people's lives, or you can build them up,
Lift
edify them,
mm-hmm.
and yep, 100%.
Yeah. But no, I just thought it was so interesting, and it's like, in like my mind, whenever I'm going into a different situation, like I have multiple conversations with whoever I'm going to meet, and I try to like recall of like what they've been doing the last few months. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, but like, how are they going to approach me? What angle they're going to come at me? Like, for example, I went to go see Jay yesterday, my old basketball coach, and I was like, what is he going to ask me? You know, and I was like, oh, he's going to ask me how the season's going.
Yeah, because you're coaching stuff, yeah.
And then I prepared myself for that conversation so much, and he never brought it up. We talked about stuff completely opposite, and so sometimes it throws me for a loop if I do that, but
it's very possible to overanalyze things,
yeah.
And I do it to a fault after I've had a conversation with a client or a family member, anybody. Like, my brain will be straight up chewing on it for days.
Yeah.
And I'll just be like, and I'll be too critical on myself about it, and I'm just like, oh, why did you say that, you idiot? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, you could have changed this whole dude's life.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I get that too. I don't sit on things for very long. I'm the ping pong ball of my brain.
Yeah.
It's like, once it happens, it's like, I'm on to the next thing. And then it's going to come back, and a month later, I'm like, crap, what? If I would have known this, but, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess that's how you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, sure.
Got to do.
And we've talked about it before, too. It's like, you can only squeeze so much lemon juice out of a lemon, right? Like, you can only talk yourself down in your head so much before you're not getting any more results out of it.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you're like, okay, well, now I'm just, like, really sad, and I'm not going to get anything done. Cause
But one of my problems is, I mean, we talked about guilt.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about guilt for years now.
Yeah.
But one of my things is when I get into this guilt trip phases is like, I tend to give up on myself.
Yeah.
Once I get to that point, it's like, I have failed. Once I fail, like I will go really good for however long, and then once I fail and I guilt trip myself to my own death.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm like worthless until the next point, which is typically about a week, until the next point in which I'm ready to try again. But I will guilt trip myself so down that I cannot try again the next day.
Yeah.
I beat myself up too much so that I'm just like, I just lost a war.
Yeah. So, and this is a fascinating topic for me. It's something I've been kind of like off and on, not like pursuing or studying or anything super intentional like that, but I just find it really fascinating whenever I see, I guess you would call it like new age stuff, like when you hear people talk about like frequencies and vibrations and wavelengths and stuff like that. I've seen so many different like chakras and like all that kind of stuff, like Kundalini yoga, all this stuff relating to the pineal gland in your brain. And I attribute so much of, like, my brain is like, since I'm a little boy, just like searching for the truth about everything, life, success, you name it. What is the truth? What can I observe everyone around me doing and saying, and what are the results of those, and how do I apply that to my life and what I want to execute and accomplish before I die? So, New Age religion, I guess you would call it, is so fascinating to me because I see so many aspects of, like, Christianity involved in everything. It's like it's everywhere you look. Like, you can see they have a spectrum of emotions and how they, and what the frequencies are at which they vibrate. And like shame and guilt is the very bottom of the spectrum. And you can absolutely know, like in your walk with the Lord, shame and guilt is the number one thing that will prevent you from feeling close to God. Like it will sabotage every bit of progress you've ever made. And that's the main reason why not sinning is so important, because of the shame and the guilt associated with it. Obviously, by God's grace, we are forgiven and we can move past it and stuff like that. But it's so hard, and we've talked about this before, especially for men, to overcome that feeling of shame and guilt. And I look at how there's something, I think, to that frequency or that wavelength that it happens like in the physical world, that we're looking at it from a spiritual lens, you know, but there is a physiological process going on in our bodies, like obviously emotions and everything comes from our body. So, and I also, my right-wing conspiracy brain always looks at like how crazy can things be, and it's like, okay, well, look at what is the organ in your body that deals with or processes any of this stuff that we would consider spiritual, and it's the pineal gland. And there's, you know, all these people are talking about like the family of chemicals called halides that are like chlorine, bromine, fluoride, all that kind of stuff that's very constantly used to like filter people's water and purify water and stuff like that. Well, those do something to your pineal gland called calcification, and it's just like a calcium scale that builds up on your pineal gland, and it causes you to not, I mean, there'll be downstream effects of it, like poor sleep, poor mood, you know, like all these kinds of things that you will have manifest in your life through like pain, or you're not able to sleep at night, that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's so much in the physical realm and the spiritual realm that can be kind of connected or bridged through like what you would call new age or woo-woo religion kind of stuff. And I just find it super fascinating. I don't know the entire science behind any of it.
Yeah,
but that's something I have been like, anytime I see any information about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to read that. I don't know, like, look at that. What's that about?
This makes me think back to the question of, you know, where I started was, is God real, right? Like, when I started out, especially with how your mind works, it's 100% feels the same way. Like, in a materialistic world, you cannot see feelings or thought patterns. Like, you cannot see these things no matter what. I can look at you and I have no idea what the heck's going through that brain. Right? So it's not real in the sense of a materialistic world, which makes me think, like, there's no way you can just live like that and disown everybody's feelings, because you can have empathy and you can feel the same way they're feeling, right? You're like, I understand what you're talking about, but you can't see it. You can't you can't feel it. You can't touch it.
You know it's there.
But you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's like the same thing every time I go down the rabbit hole of I'm mad at God or whatever, my relationship is sour, I come right back to, you cannot push back, or I don't even know the right word, think that this is fake, what you've already experienced.
Right.
Because I've had these feelings of connectedness with God.
Yeah.
I've felt God's touch. I've felt these incredible, spiritual experiences. I can't denote these. Like,
right. They were real.
They're not going away. Those were real feelings, and
yeah.
I felt them in real life.
Yep.
So like, and a lot of people are not even going to understand that because they haven't had those spiritual connections. But once you get out of materialistic thought pattern and like, first off, validate your feelings. Like, feelings are actually real.
Yeah.
Everybody feels them, right? And it affects your mood, and that's how you can read people or whatnot. But that understanding, I guess that's kind of your balance we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's better? That's my question. Would you rather live farther into the spiritual and emotional connectedness, or further in the materialistic world? I mean, is the new age in the middle pretty balanced? Is that the right place?
Well, I feel like balance is different for everyone. Like, obviously God has a plan for every single one of us, right? And one of the concepts with Christianity that I struggled with, not the hardest, but like the hardest thing I struggled with was like, number one, my past experiences with it, like growing up, like humans that used religion as like a club of authority or power, or like it's like the example that you see in humans is almost always a terrible viewpoint on religion. Like, look at all the bad things in the past that have happened, the Crusades, whatever. Like, anybody who wants to find a bad thing about religion can find a example that a human did
right.
that is a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try to look at more of like, what has God done? and say your question again too. I got a little bit lost there.
The balance. Do you be more spiritual or more materialistic or right?
Okay, so and that's what it brings me back to is everything is a process of wrestling. Like you're never going to achieve perfection, right? But you're just constantly striving, and it's like,
which is so hard to accept.
Yes, it is. It's hard to accept because we're all striving to be perfect. You know what I mean? And it's the balance is found in wrestling. Jesus talked so hyperbolic sometimes, like the Sermon on the Mount. He'll say things like, "Do not be angry," because that's the same thing as murder. You know what I mean? That's a super hyperbolic statement. But if you actually study and like think about that and sit with that and meditate on that, what it forces you to do is find balance in there. Like it just causes you to wrestle with the concept in your internal dialogue, like speaking hyperbolically like that, which he does a lot. It just basically gets your attention and makes you focus on that one subject matter for a certain amount of time so that you study it inside yourself and you think about it like, well, how is being angry the same thing as murder? You know, like that's not the same. Like somebody who goes and shoots somebody, that's way worse, but it's not. It's this, you know. It's
and if you like my mind automatically went to like a timeline sort of sense. And it's like if you rooted, I guess a tree would even be a better example. At the top of the tree, the blossom was murder, right?
The result, the
result, right? But if you tailed that back, I mean, and most of the time it's like you watching. I watch the cop shows and the psychology, you know, all the stuff. And they're like, oh, this kid's childhood, the roots. This implanted a bit of anger in him, and 10 years later he commits murder. Yeah. So it's like, you know, is it really different?
It grows into. Yeah. And this is kind of, we've talked about this before. Your life is a result of not just like, I mean, sometimes bad things happen because of one decision, like, right? But usually it's the result of decision after decision after decision, and it's like, okay, well, I decided to not give 110% on this one thing I did today. It's not just that day that's affecting. 100%. The next day, you're going to be more inclined to not give 100% on what you're doing. It just, everything builds up and compounds, and that's just the way the world works.
And honestly, I try to portray this message to young people. And I'm super young, and I'm just starting to experience it now myself. But like, I try to explain these, especially to my students, like, what you do today affects tomorrow and the next day. If you, like, I say the saying, once a quitter, always a quitter. Not necessarily 100% true, but you're more inclined to quit again.
It's a good framework to go off of.
It's a good framework to, like, set your structure on. But if you, because, like, when you're first starting out, you're making these decisions, and then you're going to feel them 6 months later, and you're going to be like, oh my, why do I do this automatically? Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm seeing. Like, I've made really good decisions here in this area, and I'm like, I really like the way I am right here.
I like the results.
Yeah. And I made really poor decisions over here. And now I suck over here. Yeah. Now it's like, I got to work on this, you know, so. But, yeah, that was a whole spiel there.
No, that's what I think what the Bible's getting at when it talks about the fruit. Yes. You will know people by their fruit.
Mm-hmm. One other thing, though, I wanted to say, amongst that tree of the beginning with anger and ending with murder, like, don't think just because you are angry right now, you're going to commit murder in 10 years, like, right? There's also God's grace who can be a lightning bolt and cut that tree in half at any point in time and then grow a new branch off the right, which leads you to prosperity and changing people's lives. Like, you always have the power to change, but, I mean, it's tough.
The tree is a good analogy. I think that's why the Bible uses it so much, because, like, he could cut the tree off, and it just sits on the ground and rots there, and we might walk across that and see, like, oh, wow, that's just a rotting tree. But, 50 years from then, that's really fertile soil because that tree rotted into it, and some amazing oak tree sprouts out of it. You know what I mean? Like, there's, we can't see the big picture.
Yeah.
I don't even think we're capable of thinking on a time scale, like, big enough to start to comprehend some of this kind of stuff.
No, I don't know if we have the capacity yet. I think that humans are still, I don't want to say the word evolving because that might denote everything that I believe in, but I mean, human beings have changed over time.
I believe in evolution.
I
but
mean,
I don't believe that's how we were created.
Yeah, me either. Okay.
but I believe, like you can look at it from the Darwinian perspective of like the spotted moth evolves over several generations to survive in its environment.
Right.
Like 100%.
Humans will.
We do that. We do that over the course of a year. We change and evolve and grow and adapt ourselves to fit better in different situations.
Well, this is leading me right down to where, well, I heard this on Joe's, I don't know when I heard it. I don't know who he was talking to. But when he was talking about this generation, the one right below me, they've grown up with technology in their heads for so long. Are they going to, like, turn into a computer, essentially?
Right.
Like so dependent and so connected you've been since you were literally just born. They've been screens and changing who you are and depending. Like, I struggle with the balance of skipping out on this, like regulating your body, but then you get behind of where the world's at technologically. And once you're behind, it's like you're living in a different world over here because these people understand so much, a whole different language. Like, they can speak something that I can't.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that balance.
They speak technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real thing. It goes back to wrestling, dude. We just had a kid, and I'm trying to, like, navigate the world in a way. It's like, how do I set her up for success, and her ability to navigate the world and use technology and that kind of stuff, but also, like, going back to that woo-woo stuff, like, I know the wavelengths of light that come out of the screens have negative effects on our physical body. And they also contribute to calcification of the pineal gland and, like, detrimental effects to your self-esteem and stuff like that. Like, content matters, what you consume matters, but also the actual, like, product itself is detrimental if you don't limit how much screen your eye looks at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do I, like, and this is just wrestling. It's all it boils down to. It's like, where do I find balance at? And I guess you kind of just have to determine too, like, okay, well, what are the risks on both ends of the spectrum? And so which one am I going to incline myself more to stay away from or more to lean towards? Like, so you're shooting for the middle, right? Balance, but some topics or ideas have more dangers associated with them, so you kind of, like, lean a little further in one direction on them or a little further in the other. But I don't know that we'll, as long as we are humans living in a human existence, I don't think we'll ever find the perfect amount. But we got to wrestle with it every day.
Yeah, and I listen to Huberman a lot. He's one of the few people in the science and kind of pharmaceutical, like,
it just seems honest.
That just seems very honest, right? Like,
searching for the truth.
I trust what he's putting out for sure. And if he's going to talk about it and have somebody on, like, I'm going to trust his opinion.
Right.
And he talks about, at this point or at 2 or 3 hours, like, you start to head down to very negative effects on the human body. I mean, this is the vessel, right? Like, we got to take care of this body, so we got to limit that. And I would even err on the side of caution.
Right.
But that means when you're in that time frame of using technology, you gotta be freaking dialed.
Intentional, like, I'm
using this time to my advantage, and I struggle with that.
But there's also, and this is something I started doing to just try and, like, number one, reformat my brain and lead by example in my household. It's like, instead of falling asleep to my phone every night, reading a book every night.
Right, because that's like wasteless screen time. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much you can learn from technology. There's nothing, like, the second I try to, like, I bring up the topic of, like, well, I need to, like, limit screens in my life. Well, everybody gets so offensive, like, oh, well, you can learn so much on YouTube. Like, that's not, like, yes, you're right, you can, but you can also learn from reading.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt your, body. Like,
yeah.
So everything is just a wrestling and a balance, and it's different for every single human on Earth.
Yeah.
This is,
but I mean, I think there's got to be a bit of structure.
Mm-hmm.
There's got. I think that on for the most part 3 hours. Past that, you're starting to hurt your body more than you are going to gain from it.
Right.
And I get like there's people that work 8 hours on a freaking computer.
Oh yeah, there's people who work 20 hours a day on their computers.
You know, it's like unbelievable. But at that point, I don't know.
And I don't know the science behind it all completely either, but I do know that there's things that you can leverage, like blue light blockers, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know enough.
But yeah, I'm not an optometrist or
yeah. I mean,
any of
there's
those
blue
things,
light
so.
glasses everywhere, but then also they talk about like if your brightness is too high, they don't work.
Yeah, right.
Oh, great! Is it even productive? Yeah.
Well, and it's like my generation, but even more so yours. It's like you're gonna see, okay, these blue light blocking glasses, and you're like, let me guess, it's sponsored by some huge corporation that's gonna
bull crap. Yeah. What
you can't just trust anything anymore.
No, it's that's the problem with today's world too. Is there's so much dishonesty out there that, and I was raised in this. Like I feel it every day that I do not trust anything that's on the internet unless I deep dive search on them.
Right. Check some
but
different
nobody
sources.
has on a day-to-day basis has time to deep dive on everything.
Right.
On every topic.
Yeah.
There's not enough time out there.
Yeah.
So if we just started with honesty, you know, it's like I wouldn't have to break my back.
Yeah, it's a cultural problem, cultural sickness that our country is dealing with the ramifications of bad choices over generations. It's like obviously capitalism is the greatest system known to man. It's lifted more people out of poverty than anything in human history.
Right.
Like if you think long enough, it is the best thing that we've ever done. But that was capitalism coupled with a moral framework, right? Like the founders of this country believed in God and freedom.
Yeah, literally. In God we trust.
Yeah, and it's if you just have capitalism or the idea that, you know, money is what matters, well, that's going to lead to bad things if it's not coupled with a morality. Mm-hmm. Like you need a religious structure or framework to make sure that yes, we're going to make money and we're going to pursue improvement in quality of life for everyone around us with a set of guidelines in place. Like, you know, like we don't just make profit at any cost. Like, yeah, which is what a psychopathic entity like an LLC or whatever is designed to do. Mm-hmm. Like you give legal agency to something that's not real in the flesh, and that's basically operating without any kind of a moral framework except for the humans that are a part of it. Mm-hmm. So if the humans that are a part of it don't have a moral code or whatever you want to call it, like all this dumb stuff from the past that we just scoff at, like chivalry or, you know, like doing the right thing even when it hurts, no matter what, like those kind of things, once you start to get rid of them, lead to bad results. And we're dealing with that right now as a country.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, yeah, because like an LLC or some sort of company, a name, does not have morals.
Correct.
It cannot. It's
right.
It's not a living.
It doesn't have a soul or a spirit or anything.
Right. It's got leaders that do or should.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes don't, but
right.
And then that's where once money is your god.
Yeah.
Because everyone worships something.
Yeah.
Right. So once money is your highest power, and that's all you want to do is get your money, that's when you invite into slavery. Like
right.
you hired the people in some foreign country to make your gloves for 1 cent an hour, and you know you're selling them for $8.
Yeah.
That's started right at morality.
It's almost like the absence of God almost like, well, it indefinitely leads to terrible human suffering. Mm-hmm. Like you remove God from the equation and you give it long enough, and humans will turn into terrible creatures. Mm-hmm. It's
I mean, you can never. It's so hard for me to to explain to somebody that doesn't believe in God that you will always believe in God because your God is just going to be different than mine. Your God is money.
Yep.
Your God is
or fitness or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever fitness, you want, or drugs, or you know, nicotine, whatever your you're worshiping over something else.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a hard concept to grasp. Is that like whatever gets your attention, you're worshiping.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and that's what the Bible says.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And people just dismiss that, like.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's that guy. Oh, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. He did the research of the near-death experiences.
Oh, I'm not going to remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about. I listened to a pretty long podcast about it.
Yeah, and he's got some 4-hour ones that are just crazy. But, I mean, one of the ones he was talking about is how the guy died, right? And he met with Jesus, and they're flying over the city, and they're looking at these people, and he can see what they're worshiping.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, this is this person of God. Like, Jesus is like, you see this guy? Like, he hates his kid because he's worshiping this.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, you put that into perspective and you sit back and it's like, whoa. How am I living my life?
Yeah, what am I worshiping?
What am I worshiping? You know? What is my actions speaking?
Yeah.
What are my thought patterns speaking? And it's like, I mean, that's a rabbit hole you could get lost down.
And that's, what we talked about too is like noise and distractions. Mm-hmm. And that's just, you can look at them as you're worshiping something else, or they're distracting you from worshiping what you know you should be.
Yes.
Like, either way, same coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just scary. It's scary. It really is.
I'm gonna let you stew on that for a couple minutes. I gotta go pee real quick.
Okay. Okay, so here's what I was thinking during the pee break.
Okay.
I went crabbing yesterday, and I walk into the Shell station to grab my license, and the guy working behind the counter has an AirPod in one ear and is working in the other. You know, and like is doing his job and is busy. There's multiple people at the counter with a headphone in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, you are here and at your job, but you're not actually here.
Yeah.
You can do your job with noise, but you are interacting with people. Like, he is asking me what he's doing, but he's only got half his attention here.
Yeah.
At what point are you really missing the whole world? Your whole life. You know what I mean? At work, like, I'm only talking about I'm distracted the 3 hours that I'm not at work throughout my day. Like, at work, I'm 100% here. I don't even check my phone.
Right.
For the 12 hours I'm at work.
That's a tough one, too, because, number one, every person is so different. Some people can multitask, like, seamlessly, and some people can only do one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the aspect of how much attention is he actually lending to whatever's in his ear, and how much attention does he need to do his job because of how long he's been doing it. So it's like, number one, some people could just be doing, like, I just want subconsciously, I want certain things going into my brain that I'm not actually paying attention to consciously. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real powerful tool people can use. Like,
that's fair.
You play certain things at night when you're going to sleep or whatever, like
the sound machine.
Audio, yeah. And then there's also the aspect of, like, okay, if it was his first day on the job, he probably needs 100% of his attention to do whatever he's doing. But if it's like, okay, he's just checking people out at the cashier, and he's been doing it for 10 years, and he can do it in his sleep, you know? So I don't know what.
Yeah, I just think that you're also, like, missing part of the life that's going on.
Yeah.
But, like,
because being present is important.
You know, he could have heard a conversation that could have changed his life. If he could have heard further on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because he's suppressing his, I don't know.
That is 100% why it's like.
Maybe I picked it up because I'm working on that personally. Like
most opportunities, like the combination of, pre-planning and hard work and stuff like that, but then also being present. Yeah. So you catch the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like that's what
we were just talking about too.
Yeah. That's an important aspect of living in whatever it is you're going through, whether it's good or bad, like just sitting in it and living through it because there's lessons to be learned, which those are opportunities that most people dismiss.
Yeah.
Like
Also, you don't want to learn those lessons because
they're painful.
Hard.
Yeah, they're painful.
Yeah, painful.
But there's old MJ quote: "Winners never lose. They win or they learn."
Yep.
Like, dude, that is so true. You could be going through something that you feel like you're losing, but you're not. You're learning.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning that you don't ever want to do that again. So you're going to take the steps necessary to keep yourself out of that situation again.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
That's a good thought, though.
Well, I think that was a pretty solid episode.
Okay.
That one flowed pretty good, especially since we're in person this time.
It's way easier in person.
Man, isn't it? I feel like it's kind of blocky when we're online, but...
Well, and the online too is workable, but it's then when you throw in a bad connection and it's like hard to even hear some stuff, and you're like,
yeah,
what do you do but fight through it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, also it's like I can see your thoughts better, and I can feel your thoughts better when I'm in person. I can't do that through the computer.
Yeah, you can only put so much inflection in your voice that you got. Being able to see somebody's facial expressions makes a big...
Even like just feel the energy in the room, like because most of the time on the video call I can see you.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't feel your thoughts.
That's another woo-woo thing, man. People,
that's it.
People have energy, vibes, and energy is a real thing.
Yeah, that's like I was explaining to I don't know. I think it was Morgan. It's like the woman that I want her to be able to walk into the room and you feel her. Yeah, right, because like she has that powerful presence. Yeah, that's something I look for. But, anyways, yeah. Overall, I mean, we talked about just about everything on that one.
Yep.
All right.
Talk about everything next time too.
Yep. All right. See ya.
Bye.